له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: ربي قد آتيتني من الملك وعلمتني من تأويل الأحاديث فاطر السماوات والأرض أنت وليي في الدنيا والآخرة توفني مسلما وألحقني بالصالحين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. In the previous khutbah, which at least last time I was here was probably a month or 2 months ago, we had introduced the conclusion of the story of Yusuf alayhi salam as it comes in the Quran. And if you recall, we had sort of talked about those final moments that are described in the Quran where Yusuf alayhi salam is reconnected now with his father. Prophet Yusuf was connected with his father and his family. And the Quran mentions وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا, and they had all prostrated. And we mentioned that it was at this moment that Yusuf alayhi salam turns toward his father and he makes a statement toward him. And just to recap, and he says, يَا أَبَتِي هَذَا تَأْوِيلُ رُؤْيَايَ مِنْ قَبْلِ قد جعلها ربي حقا وقد أحسن بي إذ أخرجني من السجن وجاء بكم من البدو من بعد أن نزغ الشيطان بيني وبين إخوتي. He turns to his father and he sort of recollects the last few years or decades of his life. And we reminded us all that, when someone goes through so much difficulty in their life, and the prophets were all tested, but Yusuf alayhi salam was one of the most tested prophets. This is a prophet that was, from a young age, sort of ridiculed or attacked by his brothers out of jealousy. He was thrown down a well as a child. He was taken out of that well and sort of taken into slavery, and then into slavery, and then he was assigned to the space of the king, and then was accused falsely of having a relationship with the king's wife. And then he was imprisoned falsely because of that, and he remained in prison for an extended period of time. This is someone who from a young age, from just childhood, experienced so much difficulty that was none of which was his own fault or his own wrongdoing. And so, and we reminded everyone that when a person goes through this much tragedy or difficulty in their life, they finally are now reconnected or reunited with their parent or their father or their mother. Imagine what they'd want to tell them. You won't believe what I went through. The last 20, 30 years, since I was just a few years old, I went through all of this. And you sort of recollect, because that's the one person you can trust, your parent who you've finally reunited with. And so you would think that would be the statement that Yusuf alayhi salam makes to his father, but instead, what he tells his father is he takes everything that happened to him, he presents it in a positive way, and basically highlights to his father how generous Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been to him through his life. So that was last time, and you can probably find the recording available online. I want to continue with the next portion of this, which is the final statement of Yusuf alayhi salam. Now, after he addresses his father, and he tells his father about how great Allah has been to him in his life, despite you and I knowing how difficult his life was, right, because of just the way things worked out, he then turns toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he makes a dua. Now, this dua is recorded in the Quran. It's a very beautiful dua that not only are the statements made within it very powerful, but just the background and the context in which this dua occurs is just remarkable. It's just remarkable. You're talking about someone who's gone through incredible difficulty in their life, incredible tragedy, none of which was their own fault. How does this person now present themselves to Allah? And what exactly is this person going to ask? Now, you and I may think, well, if someone's going through difficulty and what, they'd have a list of complaints to present to Allah, right? But look at what Yusuf alayhi salam presents to Allah. He turns to Allah, and the Quran mentions, he makes a dua, he says, Rabbi, O my Lord. It's beautiful because the Quran in many places talks about the du'as of the prophets, and oftentimes they will begin their dua by calling on Allah through the word of Rabb, or Rabbana, or Rabbi in some way. Sort of reminding us that there's something special about this relationship between a Rabb and a Marboob. It's like I'm dependent on this caretaker of mine. Oh Allah, I'm calling upon you, my caretaker, my Lord, the one who I'm fully dependent on. He says, Rabbi, قَدْ آتَيْتَنِي مِنَ الْمُلْكِ قَدْ آتَيْتَنِي مِنَ الْمُلْكِ. Oh Allah, you are the one who gave me this, you can say, position. Now, if you know the history of Yusuf alayhi salam, after all those difficulties that he went through, imprisonment in his family, with his brothers, imprisonment in a well, imprisoned in the court of the king, and then actually physically imprisoned in prison for an extended period of time, eventually after all of that, because of his ability to interpret dreams, he was released from prison and he was essentially appointed the minister of the economy or the treasury of Egypt. Now, all of those years before that appointment, none of this comes up in his conversation with Allah. All of those years of difficulty, tragedy, calamity, none of that comes up in his dua to Allah. He now raises his hands to Allah and he says, Rabbi qad ataytani min al-mulk. Oh Allah, you are the one who gave me this position that I'm in. This is from you. This is not because of some other reason or some circumstance. This is directly a result of you. وَعَلَّمْتَنِي مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. And oh Allah, you taught me the ability to interpret speech or interpret dreams, depending on the translation you use. It's because of you. What he's saying essentially is that, oh Allah, just take a step back. Let's just forget about the past. Let's not mind that I went through so much difficulty in my life. Let me remind myself and remind the community that when I'm praising Allah, when I'm raising Allah, when I'm asking something from Allah, don't forget, there are so many more things that are positive in my life than those things that are apparently negative. And I need to highlight those things to remind myself. I need to highlight those things as I presented to Allah as an expression of gratitude. That even though maybe I didn't get what I wanted, even though my life isn't the way I want it to be, even though it's not, perfect, even though I'm going through all this difficulty, ultimately, Allah, this heart is beating because you're keeping it beating. Ultimately, I'm able to breathe air in this room right now because this oxygen is provided by you and the lungs that are required to process that is from you. We talked about this last time. For every one, let's say, negative in our life, we're blessed with 99 positives. We just often are unable to see it when we're stuck in a particular situation or a difficulty. So Yusuf is turning to Allah and he's saying, oh Allah, قَدْ آتَيْتَنِي مِنَ الْمُلْكِ. Everything good. There's no problem here. No complaints. No complaints on my end. Right? I have a right to complain. I have a laundry list of complaints because I'm a prophet. He becomes a prophet. I never did anything wrong. All of this stuff started from my childhood. It's not like I put myself in prison because of some crime I committed. None of this. But no complaints. You gave me this position of authority to rule over this land. وَعَلَّمْتَنِي مِن تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. And it's because of you that I was able to exit. You taught me the ability to interpret speech and interpret dreams. This is purely because of you and you alone. That's his statement to Allah. His first statement, at least as the Quran narrates. And then he continues. He says, فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Amazing. Which literally means, there's different meanings of how you translate fatir, but it means you are the one who created the heavens and the earth. You are the one who created the heavens and the earth. Now, how is this placed here? What does it have to do with anything? Right? It's powerful. The Mufassirun, the scholars at Tafsir talk about this in quite a bit of detail. And one of the reasons they mention that it's placed here is he's reminding himself and reminding all of us that, look who I am in comparison to look who Allah is. I'm an insignificant particle in the universe. In the grand scheme of things, if you were to zoom out, let's say a few light years away and try to look down upon the earth and try to find me, I'm not even a particle. You can't see me. And then if you look at that space, now take it toward time. In the however many thousands or millions of years the world has existed, I'm here for just a few years. I'm barely a speck in time. So a speck in space and a speck in time. But you, Allah, you are فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. You have created the universe, all the heavens, the entire world, the entire earth, everything that's contained within it. Look at all the responsibility that you have. Look at all of those things that you are watching over, caring for, taking care of, paying attention to. And despite all of that responsibility and all of those things under this umbrella of what you have, what you're watching over, you still kept a close eye on me. You still, despite your responsibility of being the CEO of this universe, my insignificant, laboring self, you've paid such special attention to over time. And then he says, "Anta waliyyi fi dunya wal akhirah." It's incredible. He says, "Oh Allah, you are my wali." Wali, it's hard to translate, but you could roughly translate it as like you're my guardian or my protecting friend. The one who really cares about me and takes care of me. Anta waliyyi fi dunya wal akhirah. You are the one who takes care of me and has taken care of me in this world and in the akhirah. Now think, Yusuf a.s. was left alone physically. He was in the well, imprisoned by himself, isolation, seclusion. And now he's a child and he's like sold off into slavery. He's on his own. He doesn't have a parent, doesn't have a sibling, no one to care for him. And then he's locked up in prison. That's the epitome of isolation. Yes, there was some interaction, but it's the epitome of it. But he's reminding us and reminding himself that despite all of those times of difficulty, and in particular isolation, you were always with me and you never left me. Even though you and I may not perceive it, when we're alone or we feel alone, and no one understands, either physically we're alone, loneliness, or we feel like no one really gets us or understands us, Allah Ta'ala gets us and understands us. There's no doubt about that. He will always be our protecting friend, both in this world and the next. All this build-up, and I'm going to conclude, he finally then makes a dua to Allah. What's incredible? Look, when you and I make dua to Allah, we just start raising our hands and we just start. Oh Allah, I need this, I need that, I need a new car, I need a new job, I need children, I want Jannah. It's like this laundry list we present. But when the Prophet ﷺ would make dua, there were a series of statements they would always make before they would make that, not always, but they would often make before that dua was requested. We talked about this the last few khutbahs, I think. A series that they would present to praise Allah, to recollect their life, to express their gratitude. Yusuf ﷺ does all of these things. He builds it up. He says, you did this for me, I'm so grateful for you. You did that for me, I'm so grateful for you. Look at who you are in comparison to who I am. فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Look at how great you are and magnificent you are, and who am I? Anta wali, you are my protecting friend. You've taken care of me. You've done all this for me. Praising Allah, expressing gratitude to Allah. All this is what? A build-up, because he has something to ask from Allah. And this is the conclusion. He says, all this is built up to ask two things from Allah. He asks from Allah, he says, Tawaffani muslima. So as a consequence of all these things, oh Allah, because of all the good you've already done to me, because you've taken care of me, you're the king of the universe and the world, just positive after positive, I want this to continue. I hope that this treatment of me will continue. How? Tawaffani muslima. When I leave this world, please ensure that I'm a Muslim and I believe in you. That's his one request. SubhanAllah, think about that for a moment. Why would Yusuf a.s. be worried that he would leave this world not as a Muslim? Think about it. He's a prophet of Allah. He's gone through incredible difficulty, which has drawn him closer to Allah. He's the son, grandson, great-grandson of a prophet, Ibrahim a.s. If anyone's deserving of leaving this world, being in this world as a Muslim and leaving this world as a Muslim and not having to have that on their radar, it would be Yusuf a.s. But his one desire to Allah in this moment, despite all the trial he's gone through, is, oh Allah, I'm perhaps still not deserving of this ni'mah and this blessing. Oh Allah, please let me leave this world as a Muslim. وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ. And oh Allah, make me from amongst those that are righteous. SubhanAllah, like the humility of this person, if he was here right now, we would say, what are you doing? You're a prophet. You've gone through so much. You are from the righteous. You're you're a leader of the righteous. What do you mean you're worried about, asking Allah to leave this world as a Muslim? That should be a guarantee for you. But the humility of this individual, this prophet of Allah, may Allah be pleased with him, and send peace, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send peace upon him, is such, and it serves as a reminder for all of us on many levels. That number one, that when we're presenting ourselves before Allah and we need something, it doesn't have to be a laundry list of all the difficulties we're facing and some entitlement that we have before Allah that He has to give us something. Number two, when we are presenting things before Allah, consider presenting all those positive things that He's done for us, even if it doesn't seem like there's many actively going on. There's plenty. Express those things to Allah before we ask. Number three, that everyone goes through difficulty in this world, some more than others. But ultimately, the goal of all of us, despite the trials we face in this world, is that the mark of success is not going to be how much peace we have in this world, or how much wealth we have in this world, or how much security we have in this world. Because if we were to use that as a mark, then the prophets would have failed, right? Na'udhu billah. The mark of success is that we leave this world with the pleasure of Allah and in a state of iman and as a Muslim. That's the mark of success. So despite whatever difficulties we may go through and are going through, ultimately that should be on our tongues as well. That, oh Allah, because of my weakness, in spite of my weaknesses, in spite of my lack of attention to you, and I recognize that even the prophets before me who were perfect in human form, they were perfect. They asked from you that they leave this world as a Muslim. Oh Allah, I ask that in my final moments as well, that you keep me as a Muslim and you include me from amongst those that are righteous. So, an incredible story from a prophet who went through so much. And for all of us, and for anyone in general, or the ummah as a whole, recognizing that going through difficulty is not a new thing. People have done it before, the prophets have done it the most. And taking lessons from their attitude of how they presented themselves before Allah is incredibly powerful and something that you and I should hopefully internalize. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to learn from the life of Yusuf alayhi salam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the humility that he had when he presented himself before Allah. May Allah ta'ala allow us to be grateful and recognize all the blessings that he's bestowed upon us in spite of any clouding that may occur because of some negatives in our life. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر وأشهدهم في أمر الله عمر وأصدقهم حياء عثمان وأقضاهم علي وفاطمة سيدة نساء أهل الجنة والحسن والحسين سيدا شباب أهل الجنة وحمزة أسد الله وأسد رسوله. اللهم اغفر للعباس وولده مغفرة ظاهرة وباطنة لا تغادر ذنبا رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر المسلمين في كل مكان برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. عباد الله اتقوا الله واذكروا الله يذكركم ودعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله تعالى أكبر والله يعلم